A lot of people are getting on Deion Sanders for the departure of Sean Lewis, but that was always what he wanted, and I'll tell you why.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're talking about Sean Lewis again, the San Diego State head coach now. He's about, well, I don't think you guys... I don't feel like people realize how big California is. He's in my state, but he's about 7 to 8 hours away from me. So we're not really neighboring, but he's in my state. So maybe I'll catch Sean Lewis another time. But nonetheless, I digress because I wanted to talk about all of the verbiage, about Sean Lewis and Coach Prime and him leaving and people saying it's a big deal that he left. That was the goal. Deion Sanders hired Sean Lewis, who was a head coach at Kent State, had great success at Kent State, and wanted him to be his offensive coordinator. It happens all the time where head coaches from smaller programs who feel like they need a bigger platform to take that next step in their career will take a coordinating job somewhere, and they will work for under a head coach for a year, and then they move on, and bada bing, bada boom, they're a head coach somewhere else. And that's what Sean Lewis was. His goal was always to be a head coach. I think Coach Prime, he was asked about it yesterday in an interview with 24/7 Sports, and he was like, that was the goal. Like that was the whole point of him coming. And I think a lot of people are confusing Sean Lewis getting demoted with Sean Lewis leaving. Do I think Sean Lewis getting demoted? Sorry, I had an itch there. Do I think Sean Lewis getting demoted was the right move? No. I think that was probably the worst move Coach Prime could have made this entire season outside of fielding that starting 5 offensive linemen every week, just because that unit was terrible. I don't know what the other option would have been, but good Lord. But no, Sean Lewis getting demoted was a bad decision. I think not everybody agrees with that because I think a lot of people were like, oh, the numbers, this, and Colorado was not a very good all-around team. I think people point fingers at Sean Lewis for the Stanford game. They obviously were outscored by Stanford 46 to, I think it was 14 in the second half and overtimes. The defense is the one that gave up 26 unanswered points. Like, obviously, you would like your offense to help out, but the offense spotted you a 29-point lead, and you can't hold on to that. That's more on the defense than it is the offense. I don't care what people say. Sean Lewis's play calling was much better than Pat Shurmur's. Pat Shurmur, obviously, I think he wanted to use the run game more, and they did do that. But the numbers were literally better with, Sean Lewis. And so I think people are confusing Lewis leaving with Sanders' handling of Lewis. I think it was the wrong decision to demote him that late into the season. I think they did so at a time where it made Colorado look chaotic. Guess what? Jordan Seaton was on campus that week. Colorado's no longer in the mix for him. He named his top 6 or 7 schools, and Colorado was not there. And I think I forgot who else was there. There was another recruit there, and I think it's just tough to kind of have that big of a change late in the season and not expect people to kind of feel like the sky is falling. Now, I don't think the sky is falling because they lost Sean Lewis, because that was always going to happen. I don't think the sky is falling in general, but I will say Coach Prime has some interesting hires to make coming up. He has to obviously replace Sean Lewis, which I believe. Let me clarify real quick before I confirm. He did say yesterday, so Monday, that Pat Shurmur is the most likely to be the Colorado offensive coordinator next year, which I think in terms of cohesiveness, in terms of Shedeur Sanders playing for someone he's familiar with, that's a good idea. That would be like it still technically is his 4th offensive coordinator in as many years, but he has experience with him over the past, I guess he played with him 2 games. I think it was 3 games. He had Shurmur coaching him for 3 games. Um, I think that's a smart move. They're gonna have to get a new tight ends coach, and they have to get a new defensive ends coach or defense line coach. Who Nick Williams was a defensive end coach, but they've been talking about bringing in Warren Sapp, who has no coaching experience. And I got into like a little not disagree. I would say it's a disagreement because I think people are thinking when I say that Coach Prime bringing in Warren Sapp isn't a good move because Nick Williams is a better recruiter. And I think people are taking that as me saying Nick Williams is more notable than Warren Sapp. Nick Williams will never, ever be more notable in the football world as Warren Sapp. But the football world doesn't always equate to fame. It doesn't always, or fame doesn't always equate to recruiting success and talent development. And so Nick Williams, while he's not famous as Warren Sapp, he does not. He has way more recruiting success and coaching success than Warren Sapp, who has done neither ever. So that was just my point. I want to go on that little tangent there. But back to Sean Lewis. He has a great opportunity at San Diego State. While San Diego State was one of the worst programs in the country this year, they did have. They are one of the better Mountain West programs out there, and I think a lot of people don't really realize that. And I think they will with Sean Lewis. I think he'll get things going. You get a high-powered offense in the Mountain West, and you're set. And so I want a lot of people to realize that Sean Lewis was always meant to leave Colorado. He wasn't meant to be demoted, and I think him leaving was kind of blown into like a him versus Deion type of thing. He was always meant to leave, just not after being demoted. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCALL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, if you want to take the guessing work out of buying tickets with Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying tickets using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back. We are talking about Coach Prime being a failed mentor, apparently. If you guys are familiar with Jason Whitlock, he's a former ESPN personality turned, I think, like political-ish personality. I don't really know what you would consider him now. I'm not really familiar with what he does. I just know that he has kind of been on this binge or this spree of taking any chance he gets to kind of take a you-know-what on Deion Sanders in Colorado. And he had recently on his show, which is called Fearless, he had 2 former Colorado players who were a part of the 2022 team and were essentially kicked off the team by Deion Sanders. He had them come on the show and talk about their, I guess, relationship or like why their experience with Deion Sanders. We'll just put it that way. So one of the players was Egan Carey, a linebacker, who spent the spring in Boulder. Have the hiccups now. He only had 2 career tackles. Spent the spring in Boulder, decided that he wasn't going to be a fit, and so he left the team. But he was still on scholarship at Colorado. He just didn't count against the team's scholarship count. Now he's in the transfer portal. He joined the show, and he talked about how he felt that Deion Sanders ignored and dismissed him. And then they talked about, he basically, and this is the quote, "I thought he was going to come in, mentor me, and kind of take me under his wing because he wanted to see people like me of African-American descent excel. To be ignored and dismissed hurt." And I have a few things to say about this. I think, for one, I think it's tough for anybody to kind of talk about the Colorado 22 portal purge. It's the cruel side of the college football business that is never really seen. It's not often that, I'm sure that video has over 1 million views now. But it's not often that you see a college football coach cut someone. And I think a lot of people were kind of ignorant to the fact that, um, it happens all the time. People getting cut. Players, Carl Reed from 24/7 Sports. He said literally that just yesterday, that play or maybe the day before, during the transfer portal palooza thing. I think it was Monday. Oh, yesterday was Monday. I'm really good at my days, as you guys could tell. He said that players had been telling him that they're being told to enter the transfer portal. So it's obviously a common thing in college football. It's just when Coach Prime Deion Sanders does it, and it's being recorded, it's going to be posted on YouTube, and it has the catchy phrase of "I'm pack your bags, I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis." I think that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Um, and I think we're still seeing the kind of the backlash from that. But Egan Carey was one of the players that left the team, hadn't left the program yet because he was at Colorado. Excuse me. And my brain needed oxygen apparently. He just is. I think I understand why he's hurt. I'm not going to take away. I'm not going to try to discount his feelings or take away how he feels because obviously I wasn't there. I wasn't Egan Carey. I don't know how it feels to kind of feel like, oh, cool. Deion Sanders, one of the best football players ever, is going to coach me, and then all of a sudden, like he said in the interview, Coach Prime refused to meet the parents that came for the spring game. They didn't. He rarely acknowledged some of the players and stuff like that, and it was just one of those tough situations. Do I think Deion Sanders could have handled that better? Maybe. I don't know. I don't really know what the best way. It's the same thing when people leave for jobs. I know it's upsetting. I know, like for instance, Jonathan Smith leaving the Oregon State job for Michigan State, Lincoln Riley leaving the Oklahoma job for USC. There's no perfect way to break up with someone. Same thing with significant others. There's no perfect way to be like, you know what, we've spent this time together and we both thought it was going well, but I decided that it's not going well, and now I'm going to leave you for this job, for this person, whatever it may be, and it's going to be great. Like I think people get caught up in the fact that there's there's this like false idea that there's like a perfect way to do things in life, and really there's not. Every time we do something, there's probably a better way we could have done it, but we do what we think is right. Coach Prime thought his way of telling these players to leave and cutting them was the best way to do it to help rebuild the program. I think him telling the guys to leave in the portal face to face was kind of his way to scare guys off. I think it happens in every level of sports during like the tryout period of any sport, basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. There's always like football. There's always like running, Hell Week before the tryouts, obviously, or even Hell Week during practice, like in the beginning stages. Everyone wants to be on the team, right? Everyone's excited. And coaches have Hell Week to kind of weed out the guys who want to quit. I think that was Deion Sanders' way of weeding those guys out. But I think the overall like publication of it or publicity of it was a little more than what people were expecting or wanting. And so for him to say that Deion Sanders is his failed mentor, that he feels like he didn't mentor him. I mean, Deion Sanders didn't mentor him, but Deion Sanders right now is not in the business of mentoring everybody he encounters. He's in the business of winning college football games, and he did it more than what people expected, but he obviously didn't do it at the clip that he was kind of proclaiming he would. And so he has a lot of things on his plate. He has to build a new staff. He has to build a roster that can compete. And I just don't think that mentoring players of a team that went 1-11, who he had no intention of coaching, was on the top of his list. I understand why it's disappointing. I understand why the message was a little harsh, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to just deal with it. I hope that everybody involved finds a new home. I hope that everybody in the transfer portal ends up finding the perfect landing spot for them. It just didn't work out at Colorado. It's how it be sometimes. But yeah, very interesting kind of strategy to go on a show and kind of talk about your coach and what he did and didn't do so publicly. Hopefully it doesn't affect his chances of finding a new home. These days, every new potential hire when you're hiring for your small business these days, every new potential hire can be make or break. And that's why you have to use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which it makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within the 24 hours of their posting. LinkedIn Jobs knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. It's your team every day. Thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. Transfer portal talk. It's happening. Deion Sanders was obviously, like I said, on the 24/7 Sports Palooza, transfer portal hoopla, whatever you want to call it thing. And they were talking about what he's doing for in the portal. And this is what he said to Carl Reed. And I quote, "When you watch us play, what did you say? Oh boy, if they just had some protection for Shadur, the quarterback, Sanders, his son as well, or if they could just get after the passer. We're going to address that. We're going to address the portal. We got to address that in the portal and from the high school ranks. You got to understand, high school to me is like choices in the NFL. The portal is free agency, and we're in free agency right now. And I'm thankful that we have, and we will have the wherewithal to get what we need. Obviously, Colorado allowed the most sacks in the country, 56, and they were averaging just 68 yards per game, rushing on 2.3 yards per carry. So they need some help on the offense line. That's no secret there. They asked, how important is the offense line for Colorado? Wild question. How important? It's a priority. We have two priorities right now. We're going to run the football, and we're going to stop the run. We're going to protect Shadur, so we're going to have to be very active in the portal. Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, a few corners. I'm looking for some dog corners from FCS schools. I'm telling you right now, I'm looking for you. You know I ain't hard to find. I'm going to find you, but that's what I want. We're going to put it together. And then they talked about quarterbacks. He said that he wants to bring in an experienced quarterback to back up Shadur just in case Shadur goes down with injury. So that way they could step in and still compete. I think the hard part about the transfer portal right now is I see a lot of quarterbacks entering the portal, and I see a lot of schools that are like, oh, we came after this fella. Like, for instance, the Boise State quarterback, Talon Jackson, I believe his name is. A lot of programs are reaching out to him, and everybody's like, oh, he's going to be a great backup. None of these guys have the intention of being backups. Let me just put that there. That's not their goal. No one's goal is to be number two. I think that's what Coach Prime hinted at when he was talking about Ryan Staub, which is why a lot of people were expecting Ryan Staub to leave because he played so well that he'd get an opportunity elsewhere. Nobody's expecting or wants to be the number two quarterback. Nobody wants to come in and be like, you know what? Even though I think I'm really good, I'm okay with backing up Shadur Sanders. No one wants that, but they do need a backup quarterback because obviously when Shadur comes out, there was quite the steep drop off, and we don't have a timetable for his return. For his fractured back. And so I think that's really important. I think the offense line is the biggest kind of concern for me right now. They've already lost Van Wells. They lost the left tackle. And so they need to, I think they needed to realistically bring in 6 to 7 transfer portal linemen. Whether they're going to get the linemen that they need, don't know. Probably not. I mean, they're going to get linemen. Whether they're going to get quality linemen, discussion for a different day. Because right now, these are the top-rated offense linemen. You have Easton Kilty from North Dakota, Jerquan Scott, excuse me, a little mouthful there, from Southern Miss. He's some that they've gone after. Zeke Carroll from Notre Dame, center, started a lot of games for them. Zach Carpenter and Carter Smith, both Indiana guys. Jalen Travis, Princeton, Spencer Brown, Michigan State. So there's a lot of options out there. Defense line, I know they're after Walter Nolan. I think his dad kind of made it seem like he wants to play in the SEC, which is something that they're going to run into. Thor Griffith from Harvard, Nate Clifton from Vanderbilt, and then Nana Osafa Mensa as the Notre Dame transfer. So there's a lot of needs out there for Colorado. They need 6 to 7 offense linemen. They really do. Because one, they are replacing 2 starters already. I think the only person that's starting next year from this year's roster, which he didn't even play this year, is Tyler Brown. So you have to find 4 new linemen. And even then, you have to find backups for them, because if they don't work out, you need guys that can step in and play right away. So the transfer portal is going to be a really interesting kind of time period for this team, for Colorado, for Coach Prime, because they have a lot of needs to address. They have the recruiting issues to address, and he has staffing issues to address. So it's going to be a big few months, or a big few days, weeks for Coach Prime. I'm going to have you covered every step of the way right here on Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for making me your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. We're nearing 4,000 subscribers. Let's get there. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and you guys have a great rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow.